Let me start with a disclosure up front. The city of Calcutta has a very special emotional appeal for me. Why do I say that? When I was a student at Delhi University, I think most of us, without exception, were deeply influenced by the intellectual vibrancy of Bengal, political developments in the city of Calcutta. No matter whether your ideological leanings were on the left or the right. And I can say that I can count on my personal associations with many of people from Bengal at that point of life. My friend Chopin is one of them. Some of us have left for another life. And if I were to start listing them all, I think we'd take a long time. I had one particular very close friend who was a year junior to me in college who was from Bengal. I think his family ran a hospitality business, etc., and he used to play the guitar. But the point I'm making is that after that association, my first job was in this city. Before I got even my MA final results, I joined a multinational company and I was assigned to West Bengal. I spent some time here working, so my first exposure to adult life as it was in Bengal. So I have always fondly remembered coming back here, and I'm particularly pleased to come back here. Chopin, I just happened to be on the teaching faculty of St. Stephen's College when he was a student, so were many others, Chandan Mitra, Shashi Tharoor, and it would be very unfair to blame me for what some of them have done later in life. So I make that qualifier right in the beginning. With Chopin, I identify more easily. With one other person I just named, it is with some reluctance. And he's also not willing to believe that I was his teacher because we went along different paths. Today, I think I want to start with something very basic. Chopin and I are students of history. And I think the greatness of India prior to the 190 years of colonial domination was there was a Jagat Seth here who was able, through one bill of transfer, to transfer all the earnings of the East India Company from Calcutta to London. Such was the strength of the Indian economy. According to a Cambridge historian, Angus Maddison, India contributed something to the vicinity close to 23 to 25% of the global economy in the year 1700. That is a good 50 years prior to the the colonial experience, which began as students of history, we accept from 1757 to 1947, 190 years. So first of all, let me say how delighted I am to be back in Calcutta. I don't know how many trips I've made here during my 39 years as a member of the Foreign Service, but each coming here has been both enriching and educative. And I don't think the current challenges that Bengal faces or what you all are engaged in, or the attempt to get the state of West Bengal firmly anchored into the Viksit Bharat journey, I don't think that's any less exciting. But let me start thanking you, Hiteshji, for inviting me to this 8th in a series of programs. Young lady, I don't know, I think, yes, I told you I know your previous generation, your father-in-law and I are good friends. We work together. You know, what is the concept of a Viksit Bharat? Simply stated, how India will become a developed country. Everybody has accepted the idea, everybody has accepted the fact that we are growing very fast. Before Mr. Modi assumed responsibility, India was the 11th or 10th largest economy in the world. Today we are the 5th largest economy, and I think nothing gave us greater pleasure than when we moved from being the 6th to the 5th largest, because we passed 190 years of colonial domination in that little journey from 6th to 5th place. The 4th and 3rd largest economies in the world, if I may be courageous enough to say so, are facing deep challenges. One of them, because of an aging population, is not able to grow beyond either plateaued, steady, or quarter-on-quarter decline, which technically means a recession. That is Japan. Germany also. I'm not picking on countries yet, but those are the facts. Whereas in India, we are growing last quarter 8.4%. Now, even making allowances for the fact that you cannot sustain 8.4% in every quarter, it stands to reason you will grow at 6.5%, 7%. If that happens, you will be the 3rd largest economy during Mr. Modi's 3rd term. Again, I choose my words carefully. Why do I do that? I will come back in a minute. And we will move onwards, well towards 2047, which is only 23 years from now. We will move in the direction not only of being amongst the 3 large economies, but there's a reasonable chance, you can never predict what's going to happen in the rest of the world. You will be, by 2047, if Ernst & Young, their projections are right, you will be an economy way beyond what the large 2 economies are today. But I've come to that in a minute. Your per capita income should grow from $2,000 plus to $15,000 to $18,000 by now. But I want to come back to the slides. There has been turmoil in the global energy markets, thanks to a lot of factors. But one thing that Modi ji's Bharat has ensured, we are the only country in the world where prices have actually come down for petrol and diesel over the last 2 years. If you look at the overall prices from January to July 2022, look at what's happening in India, what's happening in Pakistan, what's happening in Sri Lanka. But even if you go to the developed countries, United States, Canada, UK, there also they went up by 30-40%. And you had signs like, sorry, no fuel after the Russia-Ukraine war. We could have done one of 2 things. We could have followed bad policies and run into trouble. But I want you to show me Jeff Pyatt's listing. This is the Assistant Secretary of State for Energy in the United States. He said, India's decision to purchase Russian crude has helped stabilize the international energy markets, benefiting both global consumers and its own citizens through access to affordable fuel. Not no stage in the last 3 years have we been found wanting on the trilemma of availability of fuel, affordability, and sustainability. That is the green transition. Why were we able to do it? Because on 2 occasions, the Honorable Prime Minister decided that the central government excise duty on petrol and diesel came down on 2 occasions, November 2021, May 2022, and the price declined by 13 rupees and 16 rupees on petrol and diesel. And the BJP ruled states also, as a result, lowered their VAT. So we have a very interesting situation. You have a situation where, if you look at the Indian situation, we were able to diversify our sources from where we import. We moved very fast on biofuels. We made the transition to green energy. When Mr. Modi became Prime Minister, we had tried to have biofuel blending in 5 of our states. In 10 of our states for 5% blending, we couldn't do it. We only reached 1.5%. Today we are blending 12% on a rising fuel consumption level. The difference of price between states is very instructive. Rasal, do we have one of those slides? Yeah. You please see the difference in prices between Lucknow and Bangalore. Difference of 5 rupees 37 paise in petrol, in between Guwahati and Kolkata, 8 rupees difference. Panaji and Amravati, 14 rupees 65 paisa a liter. And any of you who drives a car or any vehicle knows you don't fill 1 liter. Most cars today have 30, 40 liters tanks. So you multiply that 14 rupees into 30 or 40, or that 8 rupees into 30 and 40, that is the differential. Diesel comparison equally, 9 rupees 85 paise difference between Lucknow and Amravati, Itanagar and Kolkata, 10 rupees 59 paise, Imphal and Hyderabad, 10 rupees 65 paise. So this is what sensible policies can do. And I'm amazed at some of the uneducated, bordering on illiterate stuff that is thrown at us. One young man, not so young anymore, whom I designate as the assistant professor of gas pricing, made a statement the other day, हमारे ज़माने में तो हम गैस का प्राइस ये करते थे, हम 60,000 करोड़ की सब्सिडी देते थे. To which my answer in a very sober manner was, पर आपके ज़माने में तो गैस थी ही नहीं. LPG was introduced in the country in the 1950s. Those of you, most of you were not born. Most of you look like first-time voters to me. Yeah, many of you. But even chaps like me who were born in 1952 and, you know, grew up in lower middle class families, gas cylinders came 1960s mein. And by the time the 2004-14 period was over, there were only 14 crore gas connections in the country. Our population was not very different. Today, what is it? 140 crores? 140 crores mein the total connections were 14 crores. You work out the percentage. So most people didn't have a gas connection. So my first question is, whom were you giving that 60,000 crore subsidy to? So when Mr. Modi came, first thing he said, jisko subsidy ki zarurat nahi, give up. And 1 crore 30 lakh people gave up their subsidies because they didn't need it. They were well-to-do people like my friend Shopan Das Gupta. No, I'm only naming him because I've known him for a very long time. So God has been kind to him and his family. Now, and the others, there's pilferage, pure pilferage. So Mr. Modi, to begin with, changed that fundamental equation. Earlier, in order to get a gas cylinder, you had to go up to your MLA or your MP, or, you know, you had to, I shouldn't use the word, bribe your way through it. You didn't have gas cylinders. So, जो हमारे ज़माने में होता, अरे बस तुम्हारे ज़माने में gas नहीं थी यार. Today, there are 32 crore gas connections in the country, doubled. Number two, and this is more important, piped gas is now going to households directly. Earlier there were 25 lakh, now 1 crore 25 lakh households are getting piped gas. And piped gas is 20% cheaper than cylinder gas. But more than that, today you're getting biofuels, you're getting this thing. But at a time when there's global turmoil, prices should have shot up. In India they came down. Well, that's Modi ki guarantee. That's one form of it. Because he said, even at a time when his government was feeding 80 crore, 800 million people 3 meals of dry ration in a day, even at that stage, the excise was reduced because the government has been able to, I'm not saying totally eliminate, but to rationalize the expenditure, cut out the waste, cut out the pilferage, and today you have a situation where gas cylinders are readily available. And then in 2016 he introduced the Ujjwala scheme. Ujjwala scheme for the economically weaker section. And earlier, these cylinders were all urban phenomena. If you lived in a city, you got a cylinder. There were no connections in rural areas. Today the beauty of it is that out of the 10 crore Ujjwala connections which have been given, 8 crores are in rural areas. When the Honorable Prime Minister went for the consecration of Lord Ram, he went to the house of a particular lady, Meera Manji, if I remember correctly. He went to her house. She's a beneficiary of the Ujjwala. She'd got it a few days earlier. She's also a beneficiary of the other scheme. These are the people benefiting. So I want to come back to this comparison. I want to go away from this. I want to come now to, I'll skip the BPC, I'll come back to it later. Let's look at the charts on what the government was earlier and what it is today. The government of between 2004 and 14 could roughly be described. You know, all these things you've known are success in the Asian Games, the first country to land on the south pole of the moon, Chandrayaan third mission, indigenous vaccine, indigenous startups. I will take that because you all are very familiar with it. I want to come to the overall this thing, you know, the policy paralysis which took place earlier. The economy by the rest of the world was described as being part of the famous Fragile Five. Now, I know I have a friend who's written books who's written anti-fragile, but what is fragility? Fragility, the best way to describe it is you're traveling, you have a suitcase full of breakables, you put a label on it, fragile, handle with care. You've gone from there to being the fifth largest economy. That in and of itself, I think, tells a story. Bright spot in the world, I don't want to exaggerate that, but there are friends I have in the world I used to live earlier, New York and Europe, which say that India may be the only bright spot, the rate at which we are going. The United States, this is a big economy, 23 trillion. But if you look at the European economies, for a variety of reasons, if you look at Japan, China, again, there are worrying signs there. So India is certainly one of the bright spots, and if the rest of the world doesn't get its act together where India will, in fact, there'll be more focus on India. I have this Fragile Five, top 5 journey, epochal forex reserves. I think that's a very good thing to look at. It from $270 billion to $600 billion. Inflation, current account deficit from 5.1% down to 2%. Environmental approval. But I want to show that chart which shows which project was started when and approved when. And I think therein lies a story. These are, I think, most of these are well documented. And the women-led development I want to say something on. You know, most of my adult life, if I may say so, I've had the privilege of dealing with issues relating to SDG 5, women's empowerment, etc. Partly because I have a strong feminist at home, but more than that, I think in the last 7 years that I have been a minister, all of Modi ji's programs have a women-centered focus. Let me explain to you. When you build a shauchalaya or a toilet, where does it start? It starts by providing dignity to the girl child. Then you go to the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. Who are the title holders? It has to be women. The law very clearly says either women or co-jointly. So I did an analysis. Out of the 4 crore houses sanctioned, one which are already with the beneficiaries or the labarthis, who are the beneficiaries? 72% are in the name of the women solely. So I'm not wanting to drive a point, but in the event of a domestic differences or discord, it's very important that it be known that the title of the house is in the name of the lady of the house, and I think a sobering effect will take place. Now you go there, these are all women-centered development schemes. But you've gone from there to women-led development. The reservation of 33.3% seats in the legislature, in the central parliament, which will come as soon as the census is ready, now hopefully very soon, then the delimitation, then from 2026 or 27, you can begin to implement it. And my experience as a professional diplomat studying other societies is that wherever you've had women-led development, the GDP has invariably gone up from 20 to 30%. That's a global experience. So I think those of us who are, there are some misgivings that the male of the species will have their seats taken. Not at all. These are additional seats. So I don't think any of our guys who are worrying about losing their seat, there'll be a delimitation, there'll be a re-exercise of constituencies. And wherever I go, not in groups like this, but I always ask all my interlocutors there, I said, aap mein se election kitna ladna chahte hain? Tell you, most of the members there, whether it's a panchayat or a semi-rural area or this rural, or all of them raise their hand. That is a good sign. That there is consciousness and that the government is driving that kind of message down to the people that, you know, they are not only equal participants, but acknowledged to be even more participants, even more important participants in the system which is growing. Now 10 crore, I've covered that. Swachh Bharat Mission, 11 crore toilets. I think I want to skip this to come to that point where how many schemes we started in 2003 which Modi ji is finishing now. Recently, a coastal road was inaugurated in Mumbai. It was conceptualized in 1967. Foundation stone was laid in 1918. So 1967 conceptualized, foundation stone laid in 2018, and we inaugurated it in 2024. So whatever Mr. Modi is doing in terms of Shilanyas and Udghatan, it comes through within a specified. Mumbai Trans-Harbour Link was conceptualized in 1963. It was inaugurated in January 2024. Calcutta Underground Metro was conceptualized in 1969. Dwarka Expressway planned in 2006, finally delivered in 2024. On December 22, Prime Minister inaugurated Goa's Mopa International Airport, 12 years after the Congress-led UPA government approved the project. 12 years after that. And we've been only in office for 10 years. Saryu irrigation project in Uttar Pradesh was inaugurated in 2021, more than 40 years after it had been conceptualized and launched in 1978. Western and Eastern Peripheral Expressways, both projects were announced in 2003, expected to be completed in 2009. Those are teen or those are now. However, after several missed deadlines, work on the two expressways finally commenced after PM Modi took charge. Both the projects were finished and opened to the public in 2018. Bogibeel Bridge, announced in 1997, completed by our government in 2018. Bhupen Hazarika Setu or Dhola Sadia Bridge, approved in 2009. It was BJP government which completed in 2017. I have a host of these projects. When I was a joint secretary in the Defense Ministry, I had a very kind defense minister. Alas, he is no more. He belonged to an opposition party, but we had a coalition then, and he used to always refer to me, "Oh, foreign wale Sardar ji ko bula lo." I think he used to forget my name. And whenever I used to go to him, he said, "You बहुत तकलीफ दे रहे, मैं कोई project launch करना चाहता हूँ, आप यहाँ पे वो financial advisor साहब मानते ही नहीं है." So I had to one day summon the courage and tell him, I said, "मंत्री जी, यूपी में जो शिलान्यास हुए हैं, जो फाउंडेशन स्टोन लिए के हैं, उसकी लिस्ट इज रनिंग इनटू हंड्रेड्स. तो यहाँ पे इनको यही डर है कि आप सेंटर में भी ऐसा ही कर देंगे." I never heard from him again on that. But look at the difference between what was happening then and what's happening now. Today, look at what's happening in terms of semiconductors. Look at what's happening in development of semiconductors and display manufacturing ecosystem. In 2023, June 20, the cabinet had sanctioned production-linked incentives worth rupees 11,000 crore for companies to set up plants in India. On 22nd June 2023, we invited Micron Technologies to boost semiconductor manufacturing in India. Then we signed the MOU in June 2023, and the rest is history. What has been launched yesterday, and these slides, Hitesh, if you don't mind, you have the copies of this. I will also send you some of the updates on that. And I think what is important about the Viksit Bharat ambassadors, I mean, you are very young. I think Chopin is also young. But 2047 is 23 years from now. I'm already past my, best part. But these are the people who will be shaping what constitutes Viksit Bharat. And I think if you know what happened in the past, it's only important because it will drive you with greater vigor and enthusiasm into what you plan to do in the future. If I may digress to another topic, if I have your permission, my friends on the munch, CAA. So much of ill-informed stuff is being thrown at us. What is the CAA? Look, I am the son of refugees. My father came on the last frontier mail from Lahore, on which it was safe to travel. My mother and her family came from Peshawar. I was born 5 years later. It's good to understand what the CAA is and what it isn't. There are persecuted minorities in some of our neighboring countries. And those persecuted minorities in these countries are who? They are the Buddhists, the Christians, the Jains, the Hindus, the Sikhs. There may be others. But these, I'll give you a small example. Chopin and I are both students of history. In 1947, when the partition took place, when independent India was born, the population of Hindus in what is now Pakistan was 24%. Do you know what it is today? 1%. in what was East Pakistan then, there was a certain population. How many of them are left? Just 7%. So some of these people who came before 2014, they are being given a right. And my friend, this master of subterfuge in Delhi says, हमारे बच्चों की नौकरियां चले जाए. अंकल देखो तो सही है कितने. हमारी जनसंख्या 140 करोड़ है. पोर्टल में 1000 लोग रजिस्टर किए हैं. And yesterday I saw an article in the ET, which I was reading on the way here. Total number of people who had applied, or whom, you know, they told the district magistrates, etc., to deal with those applications under the 1955 Citizenship Act. वो भी 4000 है. So what is this complete distorted picture which is being presented? Let's be very clear. This is not about religion. It does not cover, for instance, Sri Lankan Tamils. It does not cover Rohingyas. It doesn't cover others. These are well-documented cases of persecuted minorities in these countries: Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, and one or two others. Okay? Now, it was designed to deal with a specific issue. Those who have come back, the others can also apply under a well-established. India is a humanitarian country. We have followed the principle of non-refoulement. We don't return people at the borders, etc. But look at this distorted thing that is coming. ये हो जाएगा, उसमें वो हो जाएगा. अरे भाई साहब, जो जहाँ पे minority vote ज़्यादा है, वहाँ तो उन्होंने कुछ नहीं है. Many of them are welcoming it, because they realize. So it's about the humanitarian credentials of a country, and I think that's what the CAA is. Now I want to go to just one or two of these areas. I think most of these slides tell a very, very clear picture. I think the success story in India, the celebratory mood as a result of the Chandrayaan, consecration of Lord Ram, all the others, what we've done on the sporting front, etc., it's very well documented. The story is, and the issue is, what from here? And I want to spend a minute or two. I don't know. I think our first-time voting population should be, Hiteshji, how much? Another 25% or something? Yes. Now, how much is the registered voters in India? I think it should be close to 860 million or something thereabouts. I think then for going forward from here is about what we do for that generation. Because I'm convinced the India that you are being born into, the India in which you are entering the job market, when Mr. Dasgupta and I finished university, I did it 1 or 2 years before he did. There were very few employment opportunities available. You could either work for one of the banks. If you did well academically, you could go into the teaching profession, or the government was the big employer. Today, our youngsters are spoiled for choice. But more than this spoiled for choice, I think going forward, you will be in an economy which is fast growing, and where the technology is determining the real this thing. They used to make this whole thing about riots, etc. I think one of the things we are very proud of, that the BJP ruled states have a very calm and a very, I would say, a situation where you can do away with fear. Okay, now, Indian students, all right, I want to spend a minute on two. We had 28,000 Indian students stranded in the Ukraine when the Russia-Ukraine military conflict took place. I was privileged, along with 3 or 4 of my other colleagues, to send them back. I ask you a question. Which country in the world, which government in the world did something like that? Other countries had students also. In fact, in those evacuation processes that I was a part of, there were people from our neighboring countries. There were people from Bangladesh. There were people from other neighboring countries. We didn't ask any question. If for humanitarian reasons you required to be evacuated, we evacuated you. In fact, I want to tell an interesting story on the evacuation, if I may. You know, when I was in Budapest with my young friend Rasal, and we were evacuating, some of the students came to me, sir, badi problem, we will not travel without our pets. So I said, yaar, kya kar rahe ho? This pet is meant for Hungarian and Russian, whether it's not meant for, you know, those dogs which have big furs. Oh, hum to nahi jayenge. So I called, because I had been civil aviation minister earlier, I called the owners of the airline. I said, partner, make an exception. Pata nahi kya kiya. So वो तो हो गया, pets का तो कर दिया. Then one day they came to me, sir, ये बड़ा ये मौका कब आएगा? आज अगर हमारी evacuation flight 5 दिन बाद कर देना, because we like to go around Budapest. that's when the calm in me I said, please be my guest. You and your pet travel by commercial flight. Because the only prime minister in the world, only head of state or government who's providing free passage back to people is Mr. Modi. And I can't put myself in the position of telling him, इनके 5 दिन sightseeing करनी है तो इनकी sightseeing करवाने के बाद भेजना. मैंने कहा commercial flight से आना. I tell you, we took them out of there. No, I'm full of praise for them. But you know, when a head of state or a head of government goes out to be so accommodative, then you also create a sense of entitlement among these guys, as if we had no choice but to do it. Believe me, if you had not done it, like other countries, we evacuated US students also. Indian origin US students, हम वहाँ नहीं जाएंगे, हम India जा रहे हैं. Many of them came, but we didn't have the time. Of course, at the airport, we did some checkpoints. No, I want to thank you all for indulging me, for allowing me to give you this freewheeling, this thing. I think the slides are more comfortable. If I start covering every slide, we're going to be here the rest of the evening. So I want to thank you very much, and then I think some question and answer, and I'm ready to take pot shots. Thank you very much.
The first question, sir, is this. What is the role that you think West Bengal is going to play in this journey towards Viksit Bharat? What is the pivotal role that Bengal is to play?
No, let me tell you two things. What is the role any state can play? I think all states should step up and contribute to the national effort, because you're part of the national effort and you need to contribute to the national effort. Many of the things I've seen in West Bengal, I've been writing letters, I've been concerning my two departments, which are very worrying. Which are very worrying because all you get from there is a no action narrative. The central schemes are not implemented. But more than that, I think there is a consistent pattern where I feel I have a sense of anxiety. For instance, when we had the Swachhta campaign, let me start right at the beginning. The Prime Minister had said at the outset on 15th August 2014 that it is his dream that by the time we celebrate the 150th birth anniversary of the Mahatma, India should be open defecation free. And came 2nd October 2019, India became open defecation free except one state. I don't have to name it. Of course, later on, with gentle persuasion, they also came on board, but it took more time than necessary. Secondly, I believe, look, where you see development indices, they are registering. And those development indices cannot be looked at in a parochial way. I mean, the CA is a case in point. I mentioned Mr. Kejriwal, but I think it's equivalent to, it's also applicable. Some states have turned around and said, we won't apply the CA. Arey, tumhare yahan 20-30 log hain ya 50 log hain, you don't apply it, your call. But be honest, at the heart of this is a humanitarian this thing. These were persecuted people there who fled for their lives. I don't know, my Sikh brothers would have seen this when the Granth Sahib, Holy Granth, was brought from Kabul along with the Granthi. I had the privilege of doing that seva. And that is a, I did it as seva. And you know, and that clip is viral throughout the world. I mean, if you have to remove the Holy Granth from a Gurudwara Sahib, it means you're not safe. So I say this, how can you take any other view on something like this? Equally, I'm afraid the political partisanship, this is perhaps not a focus, but you with this kind of political partisanship, you don't concentrate on, you see one thing Modi ji has clearly demonstrated. With the delivery of goods and services, he has demonstrated that good governance is good politics. And at the end of the day, we will judge them. I was given the privilege by my party the other day to conduct a press conference on the dreadful developments in one part of West Bengal, Sandesh Khali. And what does it boil down to? Forget about who has done what. Can the state be seen to be providing protection to someone after the High Court has clearly said that the local police and local agencies are biased? This I quoted from the High Court judges this thing. But the state government goes up to Supreme Court in Delhi and asks for the investigation not to be handed over to the central agencies. Why? It's the women of Sandesh Kali whose voice brought this to national attention. Now again, I don't think that's a subject, but you asked me a question, what does West Bengal have to do? I think West Bengal is a part that we are increasingly proud of historically. I know Chopin, I don't want to flatter him, but I used to tell them, you know what, we used to say in the university, what West Bengal thinks today, India thinks tomorrow or day after. But I used to quip also along with others, if West Bengal sneezes, the rest of us also get a bit of a cold. So I think we are going through one of those phases just now that West Bengal needs to autocorrect. And by the way, I don't know how you guys view it, but the election is a good time to give a response on that.
Thank you very much, sir. That brings me to the next question. We have quite a few members of the youth community sitting here. In fact, very recently we heard, and this is a true testament to this government's motto of reform, perform, transform, that there was a Council of Ministers, a meeting that was held to discuss the roadmap and the way forward for Viksit Bharat 2047. So if you could please throw some light on what is the role that the youth and the Yuva Shakti is going to play in this?
Young lady, I was part of that 7-hour session. There was long 7 hours. I mean, you know, it's all right for us to have a 1-hour session. 7 hours. And the Prime Minister sat through every minute of those 7 hours. Where does the youth come in? The Prime Minister's concept of a caste society. By the way, we have a young leader. If you give him if you want to have a discussion on him, on let's say, development, he will say, caste census pay, he'll give you a lecture. No, if you're discussing development, he'll talk about caste census. I want to draw his attention to the fact there's a young leader, I mean, not so young at this, but you call him a Yuva Neta. But I want to tell you, the Prime Minister's view is there are 4 castes. The poor, the youth, the women, and
The Anata.
Kisans. Okay? These are the 4 castes. I think in any ordering of priorities going forward from here, the youth play a central role. That is true both in terms of the 90-day program that we are preparing, also true of the 3 years, 5 years program. But you know, if you have 2047 as the Viksit Bharat as the thing, then you're also preparing a perspective plan for the future, which means everything: technology, education, skilling, job opportunities. If you look at our startups, I don't have the figures with me. I mean, you look at the number of startups you had earlier, the number of startups you have now, how many of them are unicorns? It's mind-boggling. So I think the youth, to answer your question without my becoming too long-winded, is very central and very important to that journey.
Thank you very much, sir. Sir, now coming to the Viksit Bharat Ambassador movement, which is called as the largest Jan Bhagidari, or the people-powered movement of the largest people-powered movement of this century. How do you see that contributing towards Viksit Bharat?
I want to first share with you one personal impression I have. When I was growing up and you needed a telephone connection or a gas cylinder, you had to go and stand in a queue somewhere or use whatever margin of persuasion you had. The first time I'm seeing that a Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra, a van consisting of government officers and local functionaries, is going from village to village and finding out ये जो हमारी योजनाएं हैं केंद्र सरकार की, central government, are you signatories? If not, they will help you become. So this is the government reaching out to those people. Let me give you an example on one of the most recent schemes. This is the Swanidhi scheme for street vendors. It was started in 2020 because during the pandemic, all economic activity came to a stop. Those of us who are sitting here, we were at some profession, we were getting some money, we could make our 2 ends meet. But what did the poor street vendors do? They used to go to a money lender, borrow money at exorbitant rates. They used to ply their stuff, but there was no trade to ply because business had come to a stop. So PM introduced this PM Swanidhi scheme, which is you gave a 10,000 rupees loan without any collateral. And if you paid it back, you got another loan for 20,000. If you paid that back, you got another loan for 50,000. Today, something like 63 lakh street vendors have got loans, and they've got something like 10,500 or 11,000 crores by way of loan. How did that happen? During the pandemic, everybody was broke. So the first 10,000 loan they took, they paid off their debts. Then quietly put it together, got another loan for 20,000. This resulted in financial inclusion. Do you know what has happened as a result of that? They not only paid back their loans, they have an independent source of income. They are now taken more seriously by the local authorities. When I was a student in school, and after that 25 paisa, 4 ana or 8 ana, we used to have pocket money twice a week. We used to go to the Golgappe wala, etc. And then the committee would come, take it away. They had to bribe and they would come back. Now the local authority takes them seriously. There are vending zone. So one of the strongest and most impactful schemes is something like the street vendors Swanidhi scheme. Just to give you one example, if you look at all the other schemes, people realize that this is a government which is sensitive to the requirements, to the farthest first, which is the philosophy of the Sustainable Development Goals or the 2030 agenda, and also from Sarvodaya to Antyodaya.
Thank you very much, sir. Sir, as a Minister of Housing and Urban Affairs, how is your ministry today implementing Modi Ki Guarantee? There's so much phenomenal work that has been done. So if you could have some key highlights and insights.
No, we are implementing it everywhere. I can tell you both, most of these schemes, or many of these schemes are in my ministry. Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, in this Swanidhi scheme, near saturation. Now we are going around looking. I keep asking, kitne hai street vendors? If you have the definition of not having a fixed place to, ply your wares. And I think we've done 63 lakhs. We are willing to do more. I'll tell you what, Ujjwala scheme. We have already done 10 crores, 28 lakhs connection. We have an approval for 10 crore, 35 lakhs. If there are more applicants, we will give it to them. In other words, all these schemes are covered by an overall Modi Ki Guarantee. If you are entitled, you will get it. We are making this message through the Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra, or wherever I go, any of you are entitled to a scheme, let me know. I'll ask somebody. If it's on the oil and petroleum and natural gas side, somebody from the oil company will approach you. If it is on the other side. But I wish I had the cooperation of state governments. Let me just say this. Like in Delhi, for instance, the Ayushman Bharat scheme is not implemented by the Chief Minister.
Out here about few years back on Guru Nanak Dev Ji Jayanti, the local state government, the CM of the state had promised the Sikhs of West Bengal that we will be making a Guru Nanak Bhavan, which will cater not only just to the Sikh community, but to the entire community, to entire mankind as a whole, as to wherein we would be doing medical treatments, we'll be having a langar, we'll be having free education for the children, and all sorts of things which we can do. That thing never came up, sir. It was just a promise which was given to us. Later, a bill of a demand notice of about, if I'm not wrong, sir, about 1.5 CR was given to us that you pay this amount and then only we can give. So we were very disappointed. We were
the broken promise. If you ask the local government, they'll turn around and say you didn't pay the 1.5. That's why you haven't got it.
No, sir. She had assured that it will be given free of cost.
I don't know, but if you pay the 1.5, will you get it?
Yes.
I will give you the 1.5. How I give it, I will tell the Gurdwara Langar Society in Delhi, whoever, somebody will give you the 1.5. You get in touch with my people. But after that, if they don't give it, the only answer is vote them out. When we form our government here, whatever land she promised you, we'll give you double that.
Thanks, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. We will now have to close the question answer session due to the paucity of time. That brings us to the conclusion of the program. We can take questions at the end of the program as well. Thank you very much. We are very grateful to Shri Swapan Das Gupta for hosting us in the city of Kolkata, his entire team led by Biswajit ji, for putting together this wonderful program in Kolkata. We are very thankful to Mr. Ashutosh, Mr. Rajiv Mantri and Mr. Kanoria for helping us put together this event at a short notice. Thank you very much, sir. And needless to say, this event would not have been possible without the presence of Shri Hardeep Singh Puri ji. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you everybody for joining in. Have a lovely evening.